Let us begin. Whispers of the Ancients. Episode 3, The Babylonians, Lords of Lore and Legend. Mesopotamia, c. 1894 to 539 BCE. Beneath the glow of the ancient sun, where rivers wound like serpents through golden earth, there rose a city cloaked in mystery and majesty. Babylon, the name alone, stirs echoes of power, pride and prophecy. It was not the first great city, nor would it be the last, but it burned brighter than most, for longer than most, leaving behind a legacy written not just in clay and stone but in myth, scripture and soul. Here, gods walked among men. Here, laws were etched for eternity. Here, the tower reached for heaven and the stars were charted with divine precision. This is not merely the story of a kingdom. This is the saga of how humanity shaped its own mirror in the heavens and dared to call it Babylon. 1. In the shadow of giants, before Babylon rose to glory, others ruled the fertile lands of Mesopotamia. Sumer had given language, Akkad had given empire, Ur had given grandeur, but time, like the Tigris in flood, swept all before it. By the early 2nd millennium BCE, new powers vied for dominance. Among them, a city on the Euphrates, Babylon, barely a speck on the map. It was founded by the Amorites, a nomadic Semitic people. They settled, they built, they believed. From modest beginnings, Babylon would become the axis of the ancient world. But it needed a flame to spark its ascent. That flame came in the form of a king, a name now etched in eternity. 2. Hammurabi, the lawgiver king. He did not inherit greatness, he forged it. Hammurabi, 6th king of the Amorite dynasty, rose to power around 1790 to BCE. At first, he ruled a modest city-state, but he was no ordinary ruler. He was shrewd, patient, relentless. He formed alliances, then broke them. He made war, but only when the gods smiled upon his cause. By the time he died, Babylon was no longer a speck, it was the center of Mesopotamia, a kingdom of kings. But Hammurabi's greatest legacy was not conquest, it was law. 3. The Code of Hammurabi, order from chaos. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So reads one of history's most famous legal maxims. But the Code of Hammurabi was more than vengeance. It was order. It was justice. It was civilization. Carved into stone nearly 4,000 years ago, the stele of Hammurabi was public law visible to all, even if not all could read. It contained 282 laws, ranging from trade and property to marriage and medicine. Punishments varied by status, but so did protections. For the first time, rulers weren't simply enforcers. They were accountable to a higher standard, a divine vision of justice. This idea that kings must rule by law, not whim, still echoes through the ages. Enjoying the journey so far? If these ancient voices speak to your soul, like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which forgotten civilization would you like to explore next. For Babylon, the city that touched the sky. The Babylonians believed their city was the navel of the world, a divine center where heaven and earth met. Its name, Babylim, meant gate of the gods. Under Hammurabi and his successors, Babylon transformed from a modest urban center into a sprawling capital of awe and ambition. Its streets were laid with mathematical precision. Canals carried lifeblood from the Euphrates, nurturing gardens and fields. Temples soared. Palaces gleamed and markets pulsed with goods from Elam, Anatolia and beyond. But none shone brighter than Etemenenki, the great ziggurat, a layered mountain of mud brick rising toward the heavens. It inspired legends of a tower to the sky, a tale echoed later in the Hebrew Bible. To walk the streets of Babylon was to feel the weight of human aspiration made stone. 5. Gods in the houses of earth. In Babylon, gods were not abstract ideas, they were inhabitants. Every temple, every shrine was a dwelling for the divine. Each city had its patron. But Babylon's guardian was Marduk, a storm god who rose to supremacy as Babylon ascended. According to the Babylonian creation epic, Enuma Elish, Marduk defeated the chaos dragon Tiamat and crafted the world from her carcass. To honor him, the Babylonians built the Esagila, his magnificent temple in the city's heart. Rituals filled the calendar. Priests performed elaborate rites. Idols were bathed, clothed, and even fed, treated not as symbols but as living gods. Festivals like Akitu, the New Year celebration, reenacted creation itself. During Akitu, the king would humble himself before Marduk, confess his failings, and be ritually reaffirmed a divine contract renewed annually. 6. The art of the heavens. 2. The Babylonians, the sky was no empty vault, it was a canvas of messages from the gods. They charted stars and planets with astounding accuracy, building upon Sumerian and Akkadian traditions. Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, they tracked their movements for centuries. From this grew the world's first astrology, not superstition, but sacred science. Celestial patterns were omens. A lunar eclipse could signal the death of a king. A comet might foretell invasion or famine. They divided time with surgical precision into hours, minutes, and seconds. Their base 60 system still governs our clocks and geometry. For the Babylonians, to understand the heavens was to speak the language of the divine. 7. Scholars, scribes, and secrets of clay. Knowledge was sacred, and its vessel was clay. The Babylonians refined the cuneiform script, mastering it across millennia. In every palace and temple, scribes etched thoughts into tablets, histories, contracts, hymns, and spells. Libraries filled with thousands of texts. In Nineveh under the later Assyrians, the famed library of Ashurbanipal preserved Babylonian wisdom for generations. Medicine, mathematics, astronomy, literature, no field was neglected. They solved quadratic equations, measured land with geometry, prescribed treatments for wounds and fevers. Babylonian intellectuals were not just thinkers, they were custodians of cosmic order. 8. War, walls, and the dance of kings. For all its splendor, Babylon was no stranger to war. It rose in a land of eternal contest where rivers nourished life and ambition. After Hammurabi's death, Babylon faced decline. The empire fractured. Invaders came. Kassites ruled for centuries, blending their identity with Babylon's. Then came the Assyrians, thundering down from the north, iron-fisted, brutal, relentless. Babylon rebelled, burned and rose again. Time and again, its walls were rebuilt thicker, higher, stronger. Each time, the city proclaimed, "We will not be dust. We are eternal." Kings came and went, Kassites, Chaldeans, Elamites, yet Babylon remained the prize of every conqueror. Its might lay not only in arms, but in memory. To rule Babylon was to inherit a sacred mandate. 9. Nebuchadnezzar II, the builder of wonders. No king left a deeper mark on Babylon than Nebuchadnezzar II, son of Nabopolassar, ruler of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Reigning from 605 to 560 to BCE, he was more than a conqueror. He was a visionary. Under his command, Babylon reached its zenith. Its ziggurats scraped the clouds. Its streets dazzled with glazed bricks and golden inscriptions. Its walls, nearly 80 feet thick, stretched for miles. Nebuchadnezzar famously besieged Jerusalem, destroyed its temple, and exiled its people. But in Babylon, he raised temples, schools, palaces, and markets. Most famously, he is credited with building the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Though their existence is debated, the legend persists. Terraced gardens rising high, watered by hidden machinery, lush with trees from distant lands, an empire's love letter to nature and divinity. 10. The Ishtar Gate, a portal to the gods. Few monuments capture Babylon's majesty like the Ishtar Gate, constructed by Nebuchadnezzar. It was a ceremonial entrance into the city of vision in deep blue and gold. Its walls shimmered with glazed bricks depicting lions, dragons, and bulls, sacred beasts of divine protection. Above the gate stretched the processional way, a grand avenue where kings paraded during festivals, watched by gods and citizens alike. Today, the reconstructed gate stands in Berlin's Pergamon Museum, a fragment of glory. Far from its homeland, but still whispering of ancient wonder, the Ishtar Gate was more than stone, it was ideology made manifest. A declaration that Babylon was the axis of the world. 11. Magic, medicine, and the power of the word. To live in Babylon was to live in a world of signs and symbols. Words held power, incantations, spells, prayers carved into clay or spoken into silence. Sickness could be divine punishment, healing a sacred act. Babylonian medicine blended empirical observation with spiritual ritual. Symptoms were recorded, diagnoses made, remedies applied alongside rituals to appease offended gods or drive out malevolent spirits. The Makmaku exorcist priests and Ace physician priests worked together to balance body and soul. Everything was connected: body, mind, cosmos, gods. To heal was to restore harmony in the universe. 12. Law and order in the land of the gods. Though centuries had passed since Hammurabi's reign, his legacy lingered like incense in temple halls. His code of laws, etched into black basalt, remained a symbol of divinely sanctioned justice. It was more than rules, it was philosophy. To bring about the rule of righteousness in the land, to destroy the wicked and the evildoers, so that the strong should not harm the weak, so declared the great prologue of Hammurabi's code. Crimes had punishments, contracts had clauses, families had structure. Even divine offenses were outlined in precise terms. Babylonian justice was harsh, yet meticulously organized. It sought not just punishment but balance, harmony between mortal and divine. The king was not above the law. He enforced the law on behalf of the gods. 13. The Babylonian mind, time, fate, and eternity. To the Babylonians, time was cyclical, patterned like the orbits of stars. Fate was not blind, it was calculable, decipherable in dreams and stars. Their calendars were lunisolar, their festivals timed to celestial rhythms. Divination was an art. Omens a science. Books of prophecy guided kings. Priests read the livers of sacrificed animals to glimpse the future. The world, to them, was a puzzle of signs, and their scholars the decoders. They did not believe in chance, only in layers of causality, known and unknown. This cosmic perspective gave them calm in the face of change, for what has happened will happen again. 14. The fall of Babylon whispers in the sand. No empire escapes the turning wheel. In 539 BCE, Babylon stood strong. Its walls were tall, its streets vibrant. But the winds of Persia stirred to the east. Cyrus the Great, king of the Achaemenid Empire, approached Babylon not with fire, but with strategy and patience. According to some records, the Persians diverted the Euphrates, entering the city through its dry riverbed. Others say Babylon welcomed Cyrus, tired of the rule of Nabonidus, a king seen as eccentric and impious. Whatever the truth, the city fell without a fight. Cyrus proclaimed himself liberator, not conqueror. He respected Babylon's gods, restored temples, and allowed exiled peoples like the Jews to return home. Babylon became a jewel in the Persian crown. But its days of glory were over. The gates remained, the temples stood, but the heart had grown still. 15. Echoes in stone and sky. Centuries passed. Empires rose and crumbled. Babylon, once the beating heart of a world, became a name in old texts, a dusty legend. Alexander the Great, dreaming of making Babylon his capital, died within its walls in 323 BCE. His empire fractured, the city decayed. By the time of the Parthians and Romans, Babylon was a ruin, but it never truly vanished. Its ideas of law, math, time, and divine kingship spread into Persia, into Greece, into Rome. Its myths shaped scriptures, its gods morphed into other forms. Its legacy slipped, like the Euphrates, into every river of history. Today, Babylon lies in Iraq, near the modern city of Hilla. Ruins stretch across the desert, half buried by time. But listen closely, and you may still hear the wind whisper. We were the gate of the gods. 16. Babylon and the Bible. Between history and prophecy, few ancient cities are as deeply etched into the scriptures as Babylon. In the Hebrew Bible, Babylon was more than a city, it was a symbol. It represented exile, oppression, pride, and judgment. But also, paradoxically, it stood as a place of revelation. The Babylonian captivity shaped the Hebrew identity, theology, and literature. Prophets like Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel lived under Babylon's shadow, interpreting dreams, defying kings, and seeing visions of beasts and angels. The Tower of Babel likely inspired by Babylon's towering. Ziggurats became a parable of hubris and divine punishment. Babylon, in the book of Revelation, becomes a code for Rome for corruption. for the fallen city of men. Thus, even after its fall, Babylon lived on as myth, metaphor, and moral lesson. Its story transcended time, becoming scripture, symbol, and warning. 17. Women of Babylon, power, priesthood, and poetry. Though ancient records often overlook them, women in Babylon were not silent shadows. In temples, priestesses played vital roles, especially those dedicated to Ishtar and other goddesses. Some served as Najutu, elite women of wealth and learning, who lived in cloisters, owned property, and lent money. In marriage, women had legal protections. They could inherit, initiate divorce, and run businesses. They were mourners, scribes, singers, midwives, carvers of songs and laments, keepers of oral histories. One of the earliest known authors in human history is Enheduanna, priestess of Ur, writing in Akkadian, though predating Babylon's peak. Her legacy flowed into Babylonian hymnals and ritual texts. Through clay and silence, the voices of Babylon's women still echo. If Babylon's grandeur and fall moved you, share your thoughts below. Like this video and subscribe to follow the flame of civilization as we trace it across deserts, rivers, and time. Tell us in the comments which ancient empires still whisper to your soul. 18. Science in clay, Babylon's contributions to civilization. Babylon was not only a city of gods, it was a city of genius. Its scholars observed the heavens, tracked eclipses, and calculated the paths of Venus and Jupiter. Their mathematical systems based on base 60 still shape how we tell time. 60 seconds, 60 minutes. They created multiplication tables, square roots, and complex astronomical almanacs. Some of their tablets prefigure trigonometry, centuries before Greek thinkers formalized it. From the Euphrates flood cycles to stellar maps, the Babylonians measured the invisible. Their libraries held tens of thousands of clay tablets, organized and catalogued an intellectual ecosystem unparalleled in the ancient world. Babylon's scientists were not separate from its priests, they were the same. To observe the stars was to touch the divine. 19. Rebirths and ruins. Babylon in the modern imagination. In the 20th century, under Saddam Hussein, portions of Babylon were rebuilt palaces, walls, and gates, attempts to resurrect national pride from ancient stone. But the world watched with mixed feelings. Was this restoration or distortion? Modern war left Babylon wounded. US forces built a military base atop ancient ruins during the Iraq War, scarring the earth where kings once walked. Yet international efforts continue to preserve what remains. UNESCO finally named Babylon a World Heritage Site in 2019. Its value, they affirmed, was not in gold or conquest but in memory. In literature, film, and prophecy, Babylon still lives. She appears in cyberpunk stories, in apocalyptic sermons, in songs and dreams. As long as civilization wrestles with power, pride, and fall, Babylon will remain relevant. 20. The Gate of the Gods, a closing whisper. What then was Babylon? A city of gardens and war, of stars and shadows, of laws and longings. A place where humans tried to mirror the heavens, where stone was carved with divine ambition. She rose from dust and returned to it. She ruled empires and was ruled in turn. She birthed myths and became one herself. But to know Babylon is to glimpse the soul of humanity, our reach, our ruin, and our endless rebuilding. The winds still wander her ruins. The Euphrates still whispers to the sand. And under the stars the old gods sleep but never forget. This was Babylon, the gate of the gods, and its echo is eternal.